I also want to say, for those who have come to the floor over and over again to say, well, it's time for a budget resolution, it bears repeating that we passed the Budget Enforcement Act, which is a law. A resolution is just that, a resolution passed by the House and Senate recommending our spending levels. A budget law passed by Congress, signed by the President, has the force of law. And it, in fact, is going to determine our spending levels for the next year. So the people who come to the floor and say, well, isn't it about time we had a budget resolution so we knew what we were going to spend next year? We do. We passed it on a bipartisan basis. In fact, the Republican Senate leader voted for it. So it isn't like it wasn't a bipartisan effort. It was all the way, and the President signed it, and it guides our spending. But let me speak for a moment about those thrilling days of yesteryear, as I used to say on the old radio serial. Going back to 2001, if you can stick with me for a minute, that was the last time the United States of America had a balanced budget. Who was president at the time? It was President Clinton left that budget for President Bush. And that represented, I think, 2 or 3 successive years of balanced budgets. So I said to my staff, take a look at the last time our budget was in balance and take a look at today and compare spending and revenue between those 2 periods of time. I think the senator from North Dakota told me once that something like 19.6% of GDP in that year of balance was being spent, 19.6% was being raised in revenue, and there was the balance. Now we have drifted to the point where I think that spending is around 24%, is that close? And that the actual revenue is down to 14%. The 10% delta equals the deficit. But in specifics, what's happened in that period of time? And this, thanks to Senator Inouye, chairman of the Appropriations Committee, is a chart which kind of tells this story. I'll try to put it, I'm going to use your easel if you don't mind. Take a look. The blue line, of course, bar represents the spending and revenue in fiscal year 2001, last time we had a balanced budget, and the red bars represent the fiscal year we're in, 2012. And so I asked him to compare, and here's what we found. The security in there represents the, of course, military spending, primarily military spending. In the period of time since we were last in balance until today, we have seen roughly a 60% increase in military spending. Understandable, 2 wars and all the buildup that's been part of it, okay? 60% increase. Now let's take a look at non-defense spending. That would be everything from medical research, building highways or helping to build highways, education, basic health care, and such. What has happened in real dollars since we were last in balance in that non-security discretionary spending? Flat, 0 increase, 0 increase. But if you listen to the debate over the last 2 years here, you would think it was all the increase that we've seen in our deficit is attributable to these non-security programs. Those are the ones we have just been cutting away at, and I think they represent some 16% of the budget. So we keep cutting away at all these programs, non-defense programs. They have not added to our deficit since we last were in balance. Now look at mandatory programs. Now mandatory programs, obviously Medicare, and programs like that have seen an increase of about 30%. 30% because yesterday, 10,000 Americans reached the age of 65. Today, 10,000 more, and tomorrow, 10,000 more. And for the next 18 years, 10,000 a day. Boomers have arrived. And after paying into Social Security, Medicare, for a lifetime, they walk up to the window and say, now it's my turn. Understandable. So the demographics have been growing of those who are covered by these mandatory programs, and the cost has been growing right along with it, 30% increase. Now take a look at revenues. Compared to when we were last in balance, revenues have gone down 13%. Now, Senator Conrad and I were on the Bowles-Simpson Deficit Commission, and 18 of us sat there for a year plus and listened to all this testimony about everything. And here's where we came down. He and I both voted for it. We believe that the premise of the Simpson-Bowles Commission is the right premise. Everything must be on the table. Everything. What do you mean by everything? Spending cuts must be on the table, both in the defense side and the non-defense side. In addition to that, We have to put the entitlement programs on the table, and we have to look seriously at the question of revenue. We cannot ignore the fact that we have seen a decline in the revenue coming into the federal government since we last had our budget in balance. And so we have to put all that on the table. And I added another part that fits right into the revenue conversation, the tax code. This is not Holy Writ. The tax code is a compilation of laws passed over a long period of time that take about $1.2 trillion out of the Treasury every year for deductions and credits and exclusions and special treatment. I'm not going to suggest tax reform is an easy exercise. It's hard, but it has to be part of the conversation here. So here's where we come down. We're having an exercise today, which is not invaluable. I mean, I shouldn't say not worthless. It is important. It is an exercise in discussing the budget. What you find coming from the other side of the aisle primarily talk about more tax cuts, particularly to higher income people, in the belief that that's how you spark an economy and get it to go. I disagree with the premise. I think the way this economy moves forward is when working families and middle income families have more spending power. I don't believe you can give more money to the richest people in America and expect the economy to take off. Also, you'll find that many of the entitlement programs, which now have become critical safety net programs, are victims of the budget resolutions that come to the floor. I cannot imagine what life would be like for 40 million Americans on Social Security with a 40%, 39% cut. Is that what Senator Paul suggests? 39% cut in Social Security benefits. Too many of these people are living on their Social Security checks and barely getting by. A 39% cut is cruel and unrealistic. I don't think it's going anywhere. And the notion from these others that we can just keep cutting taxes for the highest income categories, let me tell you, you'll never balance the budget doing that, never. And if we don't balance the budget, we can jeopardize our economic recovery. We have a cliff that we're going to face on December 31st. It's a big deal. I can't remember a time that I've been in the House and Senate when so many things are going to happen on one day. But on December 31st, all of the Bush tax cuts expire on the highest income levels as well as lower and middle income levels. I think the 10% tax rate goes away, for example. The child tax credit is cut in half. All of these things mean more taxes for every American paying into income tax. Secondly, we're going to see the end of the payroll tax cut, the 2% cut that we've had for 2 years, the president put in place. I could go through the litany. The bottom line is this. We need to start that honest conversation about the deficit now. And we need to put something on the table ready to be discussed. The group of 8, there are 4 Democrats and 4 Republicans, have been meeting a long, long time. We're trying to put together a bill, something that actually could become law. I don't think it's the last word, but it may be the first word in the debate. And if we can't get anything done before the election, let us hope that the day after the election, we can put this on the table and say, here is our starting point. Let's solve the problem on a bipartisan basis, put everything on the table, do it in a thoughtful, balanced way. I think that's what the American people are looking for. They really are. They are beyond the charades of, oh, this won't touch me, let's go hit somebody else. I think everybody realizes we're in the soup together. I am glad that we're having this conversation. We need to have more of it, and we need to have a bipartisan effort, both parties working to make sure that we deal with the current spending in a responsible way, and equally important, find a way to get past the cliff, the December 31st cliff, in a way that will build our economy and not take away from it.